Welcome to this free immigration help channel. In this video I will show you a step-by-step walkthrough on how to fill out the application I-485 or the form I-485 application to register permanent residence or adjust status. And in other words, I'll show you how to apply for green card in this video. Now I have done a video like this before about 2.5 years ago, but as you find out, there were some updates that were made to the application, and it is very important to fill out the updated application, because otherwise if you fill out the old edition, your application will be rejected. So with that being said, I wanted to make sure that I say it before we start. If you're watching this video, you're following the instructions, make sure that you're filling out the most updated version, and I'll show you how to find it right now. So as you guys can see, I have uscis.gov open in front of me. This is the official website. If you haven't seen it before, this is the official website for U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. Government website, as you can see, .gov, which is allowed only for government or organizations or whatever, government bodies. But all the information that I provide in my videos on this channel is directly from USCIS. I don't come up with anything of my own. I don't bring anything third-party forums, attorney websites, or anything like that. So with that being said, let's navigate to the form. We're gonna click on Forms, and then you will see All Forms, and that will give you, yes, you get it right, all the forms that are available, all the petitions, all the applications. Now you can just search it here, you can filter by category, but we'll just scroll through all of these so you know and approximately see where it is. So as you can see, they go by the numerical order. So 485, here we go, I-485 application to register permanent residence or adjust status. Now we're gonna click on this, and it will give us the page dedicated specifically to this form. There's a lot of stuff going on, but I assure you, everything you will be able, after watching this video, you will be able to navigate everything and figure out everything and not confused about anything. So stick around though. So the first things you see are all the alerts. We're gonna get back to them in just a little bit, but before I forget, I wanted to make sure I show you so we can verify edition date. This is probably #1 important thing that I want you to check. Make sure that you are filling out the updated application and not something that is out of date. So if you're watching this video a year from now, you know, and you see that it was changed, watch this video with caution. Now I will keep making updated as the updated applications, updated forms gonna come out. I will keep making updated videos, but just in case if you're watching it and there is no updated video yet on my channel, proceed with caution. Make sure that you're, you know, paying attention, because some things might be different. And as you can see, it recently, very recently was updated on December 23rd, 2022. So like just 2 months ago. And as you can see how important it is, if you file form I-485, this form, on or after December 23rd, 2022, you must use this edition, the new 12/23/22 edition, or we will reject your filing. It's as you can see, it's extremely important to file the updated version. Okay, so now with that being said, I'm gonna walk you through quickly through the alerts. Now, depending on when you're checking this page, you might not always see these alerts. They change. That's why they're there. They're just the alerts, and we'll walk through very quickly. Again, you can see that you have to file an updated version, certain edition, 12/23/22 edition, otherwise it will be rejected. Okay, good to know. Moving on, there's another alert. Here are ways you can help prevent an unnecessary delay and in the adjudication of your form I-485. Submit your form I-693, which is the report of medical examination and vaccination record. We will briefly talk about this later after we're done with this application. At the same time, you file form I-485. Okay, so that's good to know. So we're filing everything completely in one complete package. That's what I was trying to say. File all required initial evidence and supporting documentation. Again, all together. Use the current edition. Okay, so 3 things they're warning us. Combine your application into one mailing package, and don't, don't send everything separately, and that will speed up the process. Okay, good to know. Another alert: from December 9, 2021 until March 31st, 2023, we are temporarily waiving the requirement that a civil surgeon must sign your form no more than 60 days before you file. No more than 60 days. So now, for whatever reason, up until March 31st, well, I guess maybe it has to do with whatever, pandemic and stuff. But with now it's not a 60 days limitations, basically. So your civil surgeon can sign the form earlier than that, more days than 60 days. Okay, so that's understandable. Another alert: to improve efficiency and reduce Form I-765 processing times for Form I-485, we may separate form from Form I-131 filed at the same time. So that actually explains quite a lot. I have recently dealt with someone whose forms were separated. Now I know why. Okay, good, I didn't know that. If you're an Afghan parolee with an approved Form I-360 petition for America's, so again, if it's applicable to you, you will know. If it's not applicable to you, then okay, you just skim through it. That's really what the alerts are for. But sometimes they can be very, very important. Like, for example, this one that tells us that, okay, we can actually speed it up if we do it correctly. But let's get into the form now. We finally get into the form. So there are two PDF files that I want you to keep open while you're filling out the form. There's the form itself, and I'm going to open it in the new tab. And there are also instructions for this form, and I also want you to keep open, and we're going to go to instructions first. And these instructions are quite long because the form itself is a little bit on the longer side. It has, let's see how many pages. I'll tell you exactly. It has 20 pages. Don't be scared, you don't have to fill out all 20 pages. All right, we'll try to be quick about this one, but at the same time I want to go at the rate where you're not confused and where you're not missing out on any of the information. But with that being said, you have the instructions that have a lot more pages, double, 44 pages, but I highly recommend you reading through all of this. And I know it sounds boring, but if you do read through it, a lot of this information is not going to be applicable to you, but some of it will be. And it will definitely help you filling out the actual application. It will give you the overall understanding of the form, what it is, what it gives you. But probably one of the most important things that I want you to pay attention to is your eligibility. Obviously, yes, I'm showing you the walkthrough on how to apply, where to file, how much it costs to file, how to fill out the application, all that sort of stuff. But what I cannot help you with is determine whether you are eligible to apply for this green card or not. I mean, I can tell you the eligibility, but at the same time, you will have to figure out yourself, because I can say, hey, if you had asylee status for 1 year, you are eligible to apply for a green card based on having that asylee refugee status for 1 year, being here in America with that status. But again, there are a lot of circumstances for each individual, person, immigrant. There will be their own circumstances. So that is what will help you, if you read through these instructions, it will help you kind of to reinforce, okay, yes, okay, I'm definitely following everything to the T. Everything is good. I can definitely apply for it. Okay, I got all my disclaimers down. Let's move on to the actual application to register permanent residence or adjust status. Now, one thing that I wanted to point out here, that there are separate applications for applying for a brand new permanent resident status, brand new green card, and actually renewing the card itself. Completely two different applications. If you're interested in renewing, make sure to check out the separate video that I've done for renewing. It's completely two different forms. All right, let's start. So as you can see, the very first part right here, it says for USCIS use only. This is just for the immigration officer who is reviewing your application. So we're not going to touch anything anything here at all. These are the only blank fields that we're going to leave. All right, that's very, very important to keep in mind, because we're not leaving anything else blank in the application. We are filling out everything either with black ink, but I highly recommend doing it just like I do on the computer, typing out, because it avoids a lot of unnecessary mistakes. So in this example, as always, is going to be our John Doe, who came from Brazil on student visa, and then he applied for asylum status. He was granted the asylum. He stayed here for 1 year. He didn't leave. He didn't mess up his asylum status. He didn't commit any crimes, no misdemeanors, nothing like this. So 1 year has elapsed, and now he is applying for his permanent residence. Okay, so let's start filling out the application. So part 1 is information about you, the applicant. So we're gonna be entering our example, John Doe, middle name. Now he does not have one, so I'm gonna put NA, which stands for not applicable. Now for the middle name, you can also write none, but I would highly recommend doing not applicable, just so that nobody has any kind of weird confusion thinking that maybe your middle name is none, because hey, you know, we come from all over the world. We have a variety of different names, so I wouldn't be surprised if somebody in the world has a middle name called none. All right, but not applicable, that's a little bit clearer to understand. Again, you don't want to leave any blank spaces. It's very important, otherwise you are risking that the immigration, the USCIS, they will send you this application back and tell you in the letter, hey, you left blank spaces, fill them out with none or not applicable. It happens a lot. You don't want to waste your time. Okay, moving further, other names you have used since birth. Obviously, if you had any other names, if not, put all not applicable. I'm not gonna do it anymore, but you get the point. I want to make sure that you understand it. You can't leave blank spaces. Other information about you, date of birth, obviously clear. Sex, male, female. All right, this guy's male. City or town of birth, well, he's a Rio de Janeiro, which I don't even know how to spell properly, but that's where he is from in our example. Moving further, it's still part 1, information about you, country of birth. In our case, it's Brazil, but again, this is I'm doing just for an example purposes. Country of citizenship, still Brazil for us. Alien registration number. Now, if you are at this stage of the process, you know what the alien registration number is. Once you apply for some kind of immigrant status, you are issued this alien registration number, so just put it here. If any, though, if you don't have one, if you don't know, whatever, you can always put not applicable, or just put none, or unknown if you really don't know. But most of the times you most likely gonna have that alien registration number. USCIS online account. Now that is I get a lot of questions about this on this channel. You don't have to worry about it that much. If you registered for USCIS online account, sometimes you get in the mail your account number. If you have it, put it in. It's not gonna hurt. But if you don't have it, that's fine. Just skip it and say none here and move on further. It's not a big deal. US mailing address. All right, so this is going to be the address where you're receiving all your mail. In care of, for who, obviously, most likely it's going to be you yourself, or whoever you want to this mail to be addressed. Obviously, I recommend it to be addressed to you. Obviously, the address itself. Alternate and or safe mailing address. Now, if this is your mailing address, but you kind of want to give just in case for someone, for example, in VAWA, which is the Violence Against Women Act, which is basically one of those types of immigrant visas where an immigrant, you can basically file for a status based on being a victim of violence, domestic violence, and stuff like this. Obviously, in those situations, you might have one mailing address, you might have another, because your life is, you know, it's hectic, it's all over the place. So you might have a different mailing address or a friend's mailing address. That's where you use it. If you don't have it, just put not applicable. Social Security card. Has the Social Security Administration ever officially issued a Social Security card to you? Most likely it did. If you're applying for a green card, then most likely you were already here on a certain status that at least allowed you to work. So yes, no, again, social security number, if you have it, you're gonna put it here. Do you want the SSA to issue you a social security card? If you've never had it done yet, obviously you're saying yes, because of course you do want the social security card. Consent for disclosure. I authorize disclosure of information from this application to the SSA, which is necessary in order for SSA to issue you the social security card. And if you're not familiar with, you probably already know, but if you're not familiar with what social security number is, basically it's briefly for tax purposes, and obviously there's like with associated with the retirement and all that sort of stuff, but briefly it is kind of like a tax number that is for taxing purposes. That's really how I can describe it. But moving further, we have recent immigration history, passport number used at last arrival. Okay, very important. Travel number used at last arrival if different from passport. If not the passport, if not, just put not applicable, it doesn't exist. Expiration date of this passport, country that issued the passport, non-immigrant visa number, city or town, state, date of last arrival. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. I'm not going to concentrate on that too much. Moving further, we're still going part 1, information about you, and there are a few questions about your arrival. Again, when I last arrived in the United States, I was inspected at a port of entry and admitted as, example, visitor, waived through temporary worker student, was inspected at a port of entry and paroled as, for example, humanitarian parole, Cuban parole, came into the United States without admission or parole or other. And that's how you were admitted into the United States. Very important. Now, moving further, if you were issued a form I-94 arrival departure record, put it in here. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people are having problems with this I-94 arrival departure record. Just because for whatever reason, whenever the Customs and Border Protection, they enter it into the system, now it's all electronic and it's done in the airport whenever you're entering the country. So if there was a little mistake in your name, in whatever, your middle name, your last name, your date of birth, your passport number, there's a few things that they fill out, it's not going to come up if you're looking for it. So I've done a separate video on how to actually retrieve it, how to contact Customs and Border Protection. So if you're having this problem, I have the video that is answering your question on how to deal with it on this channel. Okay, moving further, it's the expiration date of authorized state, so how much you can stay in the United States, status on form I-94, class of admission or parole, what is your current immigrant status, so your current immigrant status, student, or maybe, well, it's an immigrant status and not non-immigrant status. But if you are, your current immigration status would be basically the type of visa that you're on, or for example, if you're asylee or a refugee, obviously you will say that here. Okay, moving further, provide your name exactly as it appears on your form I-94. Okay, if different, but still, if any. If you have I-94, if you don't have it, that's fine. Application type or filing category. Now we're getting into important. Well, all of it is important, but this one's probably the most important, because here you're selecting your eligibility category, and it's very, very important. And I know there will be a lot of questions on this video. That's fine. Go ahead, ask the questions. I am doing every week, at least once a week. I try to go through all your comments and make a live video answering your comments. So make sure to log in next time, subscribe, so that you get a notification when this channel is going live with the answers to your questions. But let's talk about these eligibility categories. Obviously, we have 1A for family-based, which is immediate relative of U.S. citizen, other relatives of U.S. citizen, persons admitted to the United States as a fiancé, widow or widower of U.S. citizen, and then we have VAWA, self-petitioner. That's one of the only categories where you can petition for yourself in the family-based category. Most other applications, the sponsor is petitioning for you. Okay, we're not gonna concentrate too much on that. But most of the times I wanted to mention, most of the times when you're filling out form I-130, all of this done in the background. So you don't even have to worry about it this much. You don't even have to worry about this application. But that's a whole different conversation. If you're interested in family-based immigration, I've done plenty of videos specifically on that, so check out those videos. All right, employment-based, obviously, again, we have alien worker, we have alien interpreter, special immigrant, we have religious worker, special immigrant juvenile, a few other categories, asylee refugee, so asylum status, all right, that's the form I-589, withholding of removal, refugee status, again, a few forms. In our case, because like I said, our John Doe from Brazil, he came here as a student, then he applied for asylum status, he was approved, he got his asylum, he's been here for 1 year on this asylum status, and now he is applying for his adjustment of status, yes, to a permanent resident. Okay, so that's clear. This is what we are selecting in our example, but for you obviously it's going to be whatever it is, one of these. Okay, so there are a few other ones. There's a special programs based on certain public laws. So there's Cuban adjustment status, a few other Lautenberg parolees. Again, that's you deciding which eligibility category you fall under. Why are you filing this? Why are you eligible for adjustment of status to the permanent resident? And there are a few other ones like diversity visa program, the DV lottery. If you have never heard about the DV lottery, I've done a video on it. Check it out. Quite interesting stuff. Okay, information about your immigrant category now. Now, there are a few things here that are pretty important. Actually, everything is important, but here it's I would say kind of because you are kind of you're giving proof for your eligibility, all right, if that makes sense. So let's go into it, and we will you'll understand what I'm talking about. If you are the principal applicant, which you are, provide the following information: receipt number of underlying petition, if any, priority date from underlying petition, if any. If you're derivative applicant, the spouse or unmarried child under 21 years of age of principal applicant, provide the following information for the principal applicant. So if there are multiple applications that are involved here, and there is obviously one principal applicant and there are dependent applicants, that's where you're putting this information. You're putting the information for all the principal. And here you are giving the underlying petition. So if there is any other petition involved that this form is kind of under, that's where you're putting the receipt number for that underlying petition. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, moving further to part 3, additional information about you. Have you ever applied for an immigrant visa or obtained permanent resident? Yes, no. City, country, decision, date of decision, still information about you. We're moving on to address history. So here you will have to provide, let's see, for the past, usually it's for the past 5 years, I think. Provide physical address for everywhere you have lived during the last 5 years. Yes. So there are a couple of 1, 2, let's see, I think it's just 2 and 3. Okay, so 3 different fields. So if you lived in more than 3 different addresses in the past 5 years, I'll show you at the end of this application, there's additional spacing, and I'll show you how to do that at the very end once we get there. So don't worry about that. But your addresses, all your physical addresses for the past 5 years. And as you can see, the very first one, they already pre-filled to present. This is your current address. So same goes for the employment history. Last 5 years, again, same thing goes here. So we got 1, 2 employer, address of employer company. So there are a few fields for that. Now the information about your parents in a part 4, pretty straightforward. You know, your parents' names, first name, last name, middle name, if any, date of birth, sex, male, female, city, town, birth, country of birth. All right, pretty straightforward. And still information about your parents. We're going to the parent number 2, obviously, 2 parents. Moving on to part 5, we have information about your marital history now. Married, divorced, whatever it is, all right? And information about your current marriage and you can see this question: how many times have you been married? Yeah, so it's pretty detailed application. Let's just say that. We're not going to concentrate on it too much because it's very straightforward. There's nothing to misunderstand here. Information about your marital history still goes on if you had multiple marriages. Now we're moving to part 6, information about your children, how many children you have. If you have 0, all of this stuff, just not applicable, not applicable, not applicable, not applicable. I know it sounds silly, but you don't want to leave it blank. But if you have obviously 2, they have child 3, so they have space for 3 children. Again, if you have more than 3 children, I'll show you at the end of the video how to use that additional form to add additional information. It's very straightforward. Moving further, we have biographic information. So ethnicity, race, height, weight, eye color, hair color, all that sort of stuff for you, obviously. General eligibility and inadmissibility grounds. Have you ever been a member of, involved in, or any associated with organization, association, club, group in the United States or in any location in the world, including any military services? So yes or no. If yes, then you will fill out here the information. Organization 1, Organization 2, Organization 3. There are a few options, a few fields for 3 different organizations. Then we have some questions that you will most likely be answering no, hopefully. Have you ever been denied admission? No. Have you ever been denied a visa? No, hopefully. Have you ever worked in the United States without authorization? Should be no. Have you ever violated the terms or conditions of your non-immigrant status? Basically, all of the stuff is hopefully no in your case. But if you do answer yes, if you answered yes to item number 24, complete item 24B to C. If you answered no to the item 24, skip to number 25. Okay, so number 25. It's the criminal acts and violations. Again, if you have ever been arrested, if you have been a defendant or the accused in a criminal proceeding, if you ever violated some substance law, if you knowingly aided, abetted, assisted, conspirated, or colluded in illicit trafficking, so all this crazy stuff. Hopefully it's all answers no. All right. Then there's same goes for security related, just a lot of yes or no questions. Have you ever worked, volunteered, or otherwise served in any prison, jail, prison camp? You get the point. All right, so once we're done with that, we have one little subsection called public charge. Are you subject to the public charge ground of inadmissibility under, again, hopefully no. What is the size of your household? Now we're getting into some financial information, quickly switched from all that yes or no questions. Indicate your annual household income. Basically, the household income is who, let's say you're living with your spouse and you make $10,000 a year, she makes $10,000 a year. The household income, $20,000 a year, if that makes sense. Identify the total value of your household assets. Assets would be your house, your car, your, whatever you consider an asset, from things like furniture, electronics, basically all your belongings, right? All of that combined, approximately how much it is. Okay, so you'll answer here. General eligibility and inadmissibility grounds, we're still going further. Identify the total value of your household liabilities. What is the highest degree or level of school you have completed? List your certifications, license, skills obtained through work experience and educational certificates. Have you ever received supplemental security income, temporary assistance? Have you ever received long-term institutionalization at government expense? If you answer item number 68A is yes, list the specific benefits you received. If you answer the item 68B, yes, list the name and the city, state of each institution where you received that, where you were institutionalized. Again, this is very, very personal stuff, so obviously you're gonna know. But with this financial information here, I wanted to mention one of the things is that if you are wondering, because the applications are pretty expensive, especially this one, and I'll show you how much exactly it is later in the video, but if you are struggling, if you're low income, there is a way for you to file for free. There is a fee waiver. They're not always approved, but they're sometimes approved, and they're approved based on your eligibility for that kind of financial assistance. So check it out. I've done a video. It says file for free, and then there's introduction to the form and all that sort of stuff, but it is on this channel. I highly recommend you checking it out. But let's move on further. We're almost done. We have some more illegal entries and other immigration violations. Yes or no question. Removal, unlawful presence and stuff like this. Violation, again with immigration. Yes or no questions. Miscellaneous conduct. Do you plan to practice polygamy in the United States? Okay, hopefully not. Have you ever assisted in detaining, retaining, or withholding custody of a U.S. citizen child? Again, hopefully not. All of these answers, you'll have to go through and answer them. Accommodations for individuals with disabilities. Now, if you have any disabilities, you can request them here, you know, deaf, blind, stuff like that. Part 10, applicant statement, contact information, declaration, certification, and signature. Okay, congratulations, we're done with the application form, right? So you're saying here whether you can read or not, your contact information all here, email address, telephone numbers. I recommend putting everything, right? Put daytime phone number, your own, put the mobile phone number. You can put your cell phone number. You can put here another phone number just in case, or like your spouse's number or something like this, so that there are two options just in case if USCIS cannot reach you through one. And then obviously definitely put the email address, very, very important. If you have the interpreter, you can put them here. Obviously you can see the applicant signature. You can't type in this field. You can type in the gray fields. You cannot type in white fields. White fields you will have to go back once you print out the application and manually with black ink fill it out yourself. But we got the interpreters, certification, signature. We got preparers, full name, signature, statement, all that sort of stuff. And also there is one thing that I wanted to point out here, very, very important. Part 13, signature at interview. Okay, so this is the thing that you do not fill out at all. I swear, affirm, and certify under penalty of perjury under laws of the United States of America that I know that the contents of this form, application to register permanent residence or register status, subscribed by me, including the corrections made to this application, numbered, blah, 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 if there are any corrections. Signature at interview. So you're doing that during the interview. You're not filling it out at all. Okay, so make sure don't touch that, because that's a separate one. And here, as you can see, this is the additional information. That's the form that I was talking about. If you have been living, for example, in more than 3 addresses for the past 5 years, you can put in the page number here, part number, item number for that question that you're answering, where you need more space, and then fill out here some additional information. And obviously you have a few. Obviously you can print it out again to have an additional form if you need to. So I know we went through fast. It's a lot of pages and we went pretty fast, but I don't want to. I want to be balanced between the people that are faster and the people between slower. So I kind of try to go like in between. You can watch this video again if you need that walkthrough again, but like I said, most of this is just your personal information, so there's really nothing crazy. If you have any questions, just ask them in the comments below. Okay, so let's talk about a few things. Like I said, filing fee. It is a pretty expensive application, depending on who you are and which age and the category that you fall in. The form gets pretty expensive, starting from $750 and then going all the way up to $1,140. All right. Now, there's an exception. If you're filing form I-485 based on having been admitted to the United States as a refugee, it's $0. For asylees, unfortunately, it's not $0, which is, I think, very unfair. But it's the same status, basically, refugee and asylee. It's just you're getting your asylee status when you're here, you're applying for it. For the refugee, you're applying it from outside of the United States. So it's really the same thing. I don't know why it's only for the refugee that is $0, but whatever. It is what it is. Some things are weird. So most of the times, most of the people age 14 to 78, they will be paying $1,140 for the application and then $85 for a biometrics fee. So it's quite expensive. So yes, I would definitely recommend checking out the video that I've made about the fee waiver that is available from USCIS as well. Again, you have a checklist of all the required initial evidence here. We're going to open it up. Checklist
of required initial for immediate relatives, depending again which one on which category you're applying. Then there's employment-based category, and then there's a checklist for required initial evidence for special immigrant juveniles. So I definitely recommend checking this out if it's applicable to you. But again, you can find all this checklist, all this evidence that is required in the instructions. That's why I said make sure to check out this document right here. Very, very important. Okay, so one last thing that I wanted to show you in this video. Obviously, related links, special instructions, filing tips. If you want to check them out, I definitely recommend checking them out. You're probably gonna find something something useful here. But I'm gonna show you where to file so that you can locate the address. Let's see. So we got. Let's see. So direct filing address for form I-485, application to register permanent resident. Okay. And as you can see, based on whichever category that you're in, whichever category based on you're applying for your green card, for your permanent residence, you will have probably different address. So in our case, it was the asylee guy, John Doe from Brazil, and the asylum refugee. There you go. And let's see, yes, so depending on which state you're in. Now, we didn't say, but our John Doe lives in New York. There you go, New York. So he will be filing to US if he's using US Postal Service, which is USPS, which is what I recommend filing with. He will be sending this to PO Box. If he wants to send with FedEx, UPS, or DHL, he will be sending it here, not to the PO Box. Now, the reason why I recommend USPS, because USPS is still a government postal service, and just because in my experience, personal experience, and people that I've seen, you know, from seeing how they send and where they send. I don't know. You can send it however you want. You can send it with FedEx and UPS and DHL, and most of the times the attorney do. But for some reason, USPS always work better for at least in my example. But again, it's up to you. There's really it's the same thing. Just make sure if you're sending USPS, you send it to PO Box address. If you send it with a courier, you send it to not to PO Box address. Very, very important. All right, and obviously for your state, very, very important, and obviously your category. As you can see, there's a lot of them, and that's really it. The only other thing that I wanted to mention in this video is that with all the initial evidence that we were talking about, yes, you will have to prepare it, and it will largely vary based on what category you are applying on. So, for example, you're applying based on asylee, you will be providing the evidence showing that there's my asylee card saying that my status was granted, stuff like this, right? Here's the court notice saying that it was granted. If you're applying based on family, obviously you'll be providing all the stuff that, hey, look, you know, based on my employment, based on whatever. So whatever kind of evidence that you're providing, it will be different. But yes, you will be putting it together. And also in this process, most of the times, I don't think there is an exception unless you actually get a waiver. You have to do that medical examination with the civil surgeon. And I've done a separate video specifically on that medical examination. I definitely highly recommend checking it out because it is part of the process. You have to go to this doctor and you have to go through all this medical stuff, unfortunately, which I'm not a fan of doctors. I'm not a fan of any medical procedures, but I had to do that for my permanent resident status, and we all have to go through it. Not a very pleasant, but it's part of the process for now. Hopefully, maybe eventually, you know, USCIS will get rid of it, but highly unlikely. So that's also additional expenses because you have to pay for that examination, and also there are a few important things there that you need to keep in mind. So definitely check out that video. It's very, very important. But I hope this walkthrough was helpful. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions, and like I said, each week I try to do a live video of me going through each individual comment and answering your immigration related questions. As always, thank you for your time. God bless, and I'll see you in the next video.